things have got to change dramatically in America. And I'm going to put this in a little better context for you. Remember I told you that they take in about $6.5 billion a day on average. They got to pay $11 billion, but they take in $6.5. So suppose they said, okay, we're tired of borrowing money. We're not going to borrow any money. Get the checkbook out here and let's prioritize. Let's pay first of all Social Security. Okay, write the checks for Social Security. Let's pay Medicare. Not Medicaid, Medicare. After all, those are two things that the American people earn. People work for them all their lives. They've got it coming. It's a moral obligation as much as a legal obligation. Okay, we'll pay those. All right, what next? Well, we better pay our creditors, so we'll pay the interest on the national debt. Okay? What do you want to pay next? You can't pay anything next. You're out of money. Social Security, Medicare, and the interest on the national debt, $6.5 billion a day. You're out of money. There's no defense. There's no government of any kind. There's nothing other than those three things. Does that help put it in context a little bit better for you?
That is right.
I want my mommy.
She can't help you. Let me tell you what's happened over the last 3.5 years. I've got a little clip. I didn't bring it today because I didn't know if you'd have the facilities to play it. I should have. But it's a great clip. It's about 2 minutes long. And it's Obama talking earlier this year. And he's given this speech and he says, you know, these Republicans, they do this, they do that, and they can't make it work, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, we tried our plan and it worked. And then we have after that all these commentaries from people saying, no, it's not working. This is how it's not working. Unemployment rate is up since he took office. Indeed, we have had 41 straight months of unemployment over 8%. Now, let me put that in context for you. From the day that Harry Truman stood up and took the oath of office until George W. Bush walked out of the White House, we had a total of 21 months of unemployment above 8% and never more than 3 months in a row. We have now had 41 straight months of 8% or more unemployment. Health insurance costs since Obama took office are up 23%. Gas prices have almost doubled. College tuition since Obama took office is up 25%. The federal debt has gone from $10.6 trillion to almost $16 trillion since so it increased about 50%. Food stamp recipients have gone from 32 million to 46 million. They were paying $40 billion a year for food stamps when I took the oath of office. Today they're paying $80 billion in food stamps. You've heard about the Republicans' war on women? They talk about the Republicans' war on women. Today, the poverty rate for women in America is at a 17-year high. That's not the Republicans' war on women. Now, some things are down. Middle class income has gone down from $55,000 to $51,000. The value of your home has gone down from $169,000 on average to $149,000. And worst of all, the credit rating of this great country has gone down. For the first time in history, the credit rating of this country has gone down. To be honest with you, I don't know how they kept the credit rating as high as they did with what the situation is with our financial condition. All right, what are we going to do about this? Well, the first thing that's got to happen is Americans have got to quit thinking that the government can fix this. The government cannot fix this. The government cannot fix this. The more the government does, the worse it gets. When I first got there in Washington, D.C., they had the White House, they had Congress, and they had 60 votes in the U.S. Senate, so they could do anything they wanted to do. They passed $1 trillion stimulus. They passed Obamacare. They did a very sizable workover of the financial sector, regulating them substantially more than what they were, but didn't touch the two areas that needed it, Fannie, Freddie, and the rating agencies. They never got touched in it. They did cash for clunkers, not once but twice. They did a full nationalization. Most people don't know this. They did a full nationalization of the student loan programs in America. 32,000 people, private sector people, were put out of business because the government nationalized them. They've taken over the student loan programs. You know, as bad as this sounds, I am optimistic that we can get out of this. The American people, I think, will figure this out. For 200 years, we had what the Founding Fathers gave us. The Founding Fathers sat around a table, and the war was just over, things were awful in the country, and they didn't sit around and say, well, gee, let's create a government that, you know, can we get some, you know, our fellow colonists, a lot of them are having trouble. How can we get some social safety nets in place, and how can we get some programs to get these people working again? And say, they didn't do that. They had just been through a war where they'd seen their neighbors and their friends executed, their property taken. They had been through an awful war with a tyrant who was a monarch. And what they want, and they were smart men. They knew that thousands of governments had been formed before they tried to form one. They knew that every one of those governments failed, and before failing, they wound up abusing their people. So what did they want? They wanted a government that would leave them alone. And that's what they gave us in the United States Constitution. It really worked for a couple of hundred years. But about 30 years ago, 35 years ago, something happened. The mentality in America changed. When a problem came along, they said, well, what's the government going to do about it? And I still get this. Well, Senator, gas prices are really high. What are you going to do about this? I said, well, what I'm going to do about this, if I can do it, is get the government out of it. Get the government away from it. The oil in this country, the gas in this country, doesn't belong to Barack Obama. It belongs to the American people. Let them go get it. They've locked up most of it. Anyway, we've got to get an understanding in this country that the government can't fix this, that the American people can fix this. I give this speech to high school kids all the time. I dumb it down considerably. First of all, it's not this long because most of them, their eyes are glazed over. But, you know, I tell them, I said, look around. Any of you ever traveled internationally? Oh, yeah, a few. Have you ever been to a third world country? Oh, yeah, some. And I said, look around. You got an iPad or iPhone in your pocket. You got an iPad in your backpack. You got a car out there. You're going home to a home and a great meal. I said, you know how privileged you are? We're only 330 million people in this country. There's 7 billion people. There's nobody that lives like you live. You know who did that for you? Not the government. Your parents did that. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents did that, and they did it in spite of the government. The government didn't do this for you. And people keep telling you that the government can fix this, and the government can give you more, and the government can do this. No, they can't. Believe me, I've been there 3.5 years now, and it's a lot worse than I thought it was. And what I have found out is that the government can't do this. Look, we can do this. We're Americans. We have been through tough times before. All we need is this. We need the government to get out of our way, let us do this again, and we can put this country back on foot.
Amen.
Okay.
We're going to go for questions. Senator Jim Thomas. State sovereignty is the concept, and since the federal government can't fix it, how about if we Idahoans just basically take care of Idahoans, where we pay our income tax to the state government, we send back a little bit to take care of maybe military and maybe our debt, and we take care of everything else.
Yes. Next question.
Okay, good.
And you know, that's the problem in D.C. today. The question never comes up. Is this the proper role of the federal government, let alone is this the proper role of government at all? But the best example I can give you, what's breaking this country today is not Social Security. Social Security is actually not contributing to this. It's going to if we don't do some things with it. And really, Social Security is the easiest thing to fix. You can fix it without affecting the benefits of anybody who's on it today. You can fix it without affecting the benefits of anybody who's under 55 years old. Indeed, I've seen some models where you can go back even further. But you can't keep paying the benefits that are being paid. And you got to means test it so that people that don't need it aren't getting it. And that wouldn't affect anybody that's on it. But that's not, Social Security isn't the problem. It's the cost of medical care that is the black hole today. And somewhere along the line, somebody decided that the federal government should do Medicaid. And it was a Medicaid program, as you all know, is a program whereby low-income people or people, low-income people essentially, get their health care taken care of. but by the federal government, not by the state. Well, it's actually part by each. I think for every dollar the state spends, the feds put up 7. So that really states are blackmailed into taking. In fact, they dealt with that in the Supreme Court case, that it's a blackmail sort of thing. But what business does the federal government have of doing a program like Medicaid? That's the issue in the states. And you know what my friends in D.C. tell me when I make this argument? They say, well, the federal government has to do it because some of the states won't do it. That's my point. The states they're wrong if they don't. I said the states have the right to be wrong. They are sovereign institutions. They have the right to be wrong. The federal government has no business being in this. If it was up to me, we'd phase out Medicaid, figure out what the tax is that's supporting it, phase that tax out, and tell the states, look, you want to do this? Raise the tax and take care of it. You do it. You take care of it. Indeed, I think the Medicaid situation could be solved relatively easily also. Even if you didn't do that, but if you just took the money and turned it over to the state and said, state, you take care of this. Right now, the regulations that are on the states as far as how they have to administer the thing, I mean, it's a stack of paper this high, and it grows every day. Speaking of that, last year, in 2011, the Congress passed about 2,000 pages of legislation, which is about average, and it includes the spending bills, which take up a lot of space. The bureaucracy passed 77,000 pages of rules and regulation, which have the same force and effect as law, as you know. And we're just getting murdered on that by EP and everybody else. Okay.
Bill, and then
Bill. Okay.
I appreciate what you're saying today. I'm glad to hear you say it. I wish I could hear you say this on the national news.
Yes.
I've said it on the national.
It'll be on
They
national.
don't replay. It's not something they replay. And after I say it, I don't get invited back real often.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Constitution was laid out several hundred years ago, right? Those guys had the forethought to see what was going on. But today, it seems like you said, a lot of your colleagues back there flat ignore it.
Well, they don't have the same mindset that the founding fathers did, and they don't have the same experience that the founding fathers had when they just went through it. But they got common sense. And if you came from a planet, from somewhere else, and you landed here with a group of people, and you said, you know what? We're not Republicans, we're not Democrats, we're not conservatives, we're not liberals, we're nothing. But we understand you guys have had thousands and thousands and thousands of governments. Have you had any that worked? Yeah, we've got one that's worked. Well, by golly, let's do that. What would they have? They wouldn't have what we have today. They'd have what we had up until about 30, 35 years ago. It's a great question.